right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Robin, I feel like you and I live a pretty transparent life because we're always on the radio, and, and this community knows us pretty well, and we've probably shared everything we could possibly share with this audience. But there's one story I don't think I've ever shared. I have with you, but not with the audience, I don't think. So I want to share a story. This was 1974, I think it was. I was 17 years old, or 19 years old. I would have been 19 years old, right? Anyway, I had I was with a friend, and there were some older guys. And now, at this point in my life, I'm older than they were then, I'm sure. But one of the guys was a psychic. And I pretty much brush all that stuff off and never think twice about it. And he told me a whole bunch of stuff, and it just stuck with me. I can't say that I believed it. He told me not only things that would happen, but I was like hopeful that things would happen. He said, well, that's not going to happen. So there were some things he told me wouldn't happen, which is weird, and some things he said would happen. And I am here to tell you he was right about so much of what he told me. In fact, I can't think of one thing he was wrong on, just so you know. Mm-hmm. However, there was one thing he said is going to take more than 40 years, so I'm waiting for that, because it's been more than 40 years. Sara Wiseman is on the phone. That story that I just told you is why this book really, really got my attention. Sara is a spiritual teacher. Her book is called Messages from the Divine, Wisdom for the Seeker's Soul. She is a top contributor to something called the Daily Om, which is, I'm not sure what that is. We'll find out in a second. She's the founder of Intuition University. She's the host of Ask Sara, which is a podcast. She's the host of the Spiritual Psychic podcast, and she writes the Daily Divine blog. Oh my gosh, I got so many questions for her. She's produced 4 award-winning music albums with her band Martyrs of Sound.
Pretty amazing.
Martyrs of Sound. Messages from the Divine. Let's say good morning and hello. Hello, Sara Wiseman. Good morning.
Hi, hey, Larry and Robin. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Where are you? Where are you located?
I am deep in the forests of Oregon. Deep in the forest.
That's where a psychic should live. All psychics should live
wanted to go there.
Deep in the forest. When I see a psychic on a boardwalk, I don't trust them.
Yeah, exactly. They got to be in the woods, hiding out.
That's funny. That's funny. Do you know the psychic that I referenced in my intro did not charge for what he called readings. He said he said he was told not to charge, and I said, "Who told you?" He said, "Well, on the other side they told me." The other side. And I'm telling you, at 19, I didn't believe any of it. But as I got older and I started seeing some of the things he had talked about, and everything else, it was just one of those amazing. And I looked him up on Facebook, whatever, and I never have been able to find him. So
he's hiding out in the woods of Oregon.
Yeah, did he change his sex? He became you.
He's here beside me now.
You seem to be too young for him. I don't think.
No.
So tell me about yourself. Is psychic? Well, I guess you call yourself a psychic. One of your podcasts is called that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the focus of what I do so much now, because I did that for a lot of time. Mostly, what I'm trying to do now is teach other people how to be psychic or intuitive or spiritual. It's interesting, like you were saying, like in 1974, that you had this experience, and my life was so different. I mean, I'm similar age to you, but I was so mainstream. I didn't have any exposure to any of this spiritual realm until 2000. And so, whereas you probably had a lot of experience from the 70s on.
I honestly didn't.
Okay.
I mean, I was flipping hamburgers and driving my car and delivering newspapers, and I just happened to bump into this guy. So no, I didn't have anything like that at all.
Well, I'd never even heard of it until 2000, and that. So it was all a big learning curve for me when it started to become into my life.
But I'm sorry, Ron. Go ahead.
Is that when you had your near-death experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's the point when everything kind of. I sometimes think it's like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and it's all black and white, and then it I can't remember when, but it goes into Technicolor when she sees the Munchkins. And it's not like I saw different colors, but suddenly I had this intuition, and I hadn't had that before. So that was quite a journey.
Oh, my
of like,
gosh. Tell that
how
story.
does it work?
So what happened?
Yeah,
You almost died?
Yeah, it was on a plane, and obviously we didn't die, but sometimes these traumas, other people have, if you have an accident or you have a big life event, or you're ill, or even if you get a divorce or lose an important job, these traumas can sometimes really shift us. And that's what it was for me. It's like 1 minute completely mainstream, the next like, everything's from a different perspective now.
So help me out with this story. You were in a plane crash?
No, not a crash. It was sort of an incident where we thought we were going to have a lot of trouble, but then we didn't. But the shock was life-changing.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there was an emotional almost dying, not a physical almost dying.
I'd say it's a hazy, but for me, the way I look at it now is that was the turning point for me.
Do you know, this past Mother's Day, 2 days ago, my mom is gone, my dad is gone, and I have other people in my family that have died. And I wanted to bring flowers to the graves of the different moms and grandmas. My sister is also buried in the same area. And I had a friend with me. We went to the water where we had spread his mother's ashes. And I wanted to do a video of it. But I didn't want the video to be perceived as sad. I didn't want people to watch the video and go, oh, my gosh, I'm so sad. Because to be honest with you, you were saying that I have maybe I made it seem like I had some spiritual experience, but I really don't. However, I mean, I did have like religious training, and not that means I'm knowledgeable about the Bible. It just means that I have this faith that they continue to live on. And so that, for me, is really why it's not sad. For me, they're actually in a better place. Yeah,
and you have this sensation that there's this infinite nature to the love you had with them, and you can think about them, and I'm imagining that when you think about them, you have the sense that they're with you too, still.
Do you know, here's a weird thing, though, and maybe you can explain this one. Of the three people that I think about the most that have died, my sister, my mom, and my dad, my mom comes when I say comes to mind, I don't mean it's like it's not like I think of her. It's like all of a sudden, like she's like, her presence, it's like a micro mini, just a little, like a flash in the left part of my eye or something. Does that make sense? Or left part of my brain? Does that make sense?
Oh, sure. And other people you just might have this sense like, oh, they're just here in the room. Like you don't see them, but you're just like, oh, Dad, what? You're here.
And it's fleeting. I mean, it doesn't last. There's no long conversations.
Right.
On my end there might be, but on their end there's not.
Yeah.
So is that what it is? I mean, is that an intuition that I'm experiencing, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're having a sense of you're having some connection with folks in the departed realm, and that's one of the many houses in the spirit realm we can go to. We can go to the departed, or we can go, I go a lot to the realm of the guides, which is where the book comes from. There's different houses you can go and knock on the doors of and enter into that space.
So do you go for yourself or do you go for other people?
Well, my role is to be, and I didn't really understand this at the beginning, but my role is to be a teacher. So I don't do psychic readings anymore for individuals. What I'm really trying to do is teach people how do we look at this idea that we're infinite, and how do we look at this idea that we can connect to this other realm, and what if everyone could do this, not just a handful of people? What if we spread the word and showed people how it all works?
Yeah, when you go to the realm of the guides, how do you know that they're going to answer?
Well, when I had this experience back in 2000, that was kind of the start of guides arriving unexpectedly and me not knowing what they were. And when I say arriving, I don't mean like there's beings in the room with me. It's more like this sense of presence, like Larry was just talking about. And then for me, I started to get, in my right ear, I started to get teachings coming in, like in words. And so this just started to happen spontaneously and without me understanding what it was. Later, many years later, I finally figured out how to connect with them in a way that I could, determine the time and place and make use of this stream of information that was coming through.
How can you tell when people come to you that they're genuine and they're just not there on a whim?
You mean like the departed or the guide?
No,
Is that what you mean?
the people that you're teaching to go, be like you or go into the realms.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the reasons I call it spiritual intuition or spiritual psychic. I'm not interested in teaching anyone, little tricks or parlor amusements. I'm really interested in people doing their deep personal inner growth. That's the purpose of all of this connection with the other realm, is to understand ourselves better and move forward in our own lives better. And that is not easy work. That's like the nitty gritty. Go into the heart level. That's some hard stuff. So people pretty much drop away if they're not serious about it.
And those are the seekers? That's who you see are the seekers? Oh, okay.
I think so. Well, I kind of think everybody's a seeker. At least I feel like a seeker every single day. So everyone's working on it.
But I would imagine that some people are looking for information from someplace, whether it's a psychic or a financial advisor, that is simply about making money. And I don't want to discount that as not a worthy endeavor, because obviously I need money. But it always seems to me that it would be more along the lines of what spirits want us to do, to learn something more important than about money. Is there anything I said that you can respond to?
Yes, that's such a good point. Money or material items, or even, these, like, sometimes people talk about love spells. That's all. I guess I would almost call it like the very beginning level of this whole experience. I mean, the guides and the universe, they want us to understand a couple of things. One, that we're infinite souls and we have many lifetimes, so this is just one of our lifetimes. And the other thing is that we're not separate from each other, and that's probably one of the biggest points of the book, is that we're not separate. And we can't be separate. We can't even be separate if we wanted to, which takes a little getting used to. But this idea of being an infinite being connected with all the other infinite beings is a great paradigm shifter from, instead of just, I just want the material things or I want the success, looking at the lifetime in a whole different way.
How do you have people move forward in their life? Because sometimes when a person passes, their life seems to stop and they're stuck in the past.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's one part of the book, it says the heart is where the soul resides. And so much of our inner work is our intuitive work is dealing with all of those feelings of grief and loss, and maybe it's not even grief and loss. Maybe you were wounded by someone, in a past relationship, or maybe you had some kind of failure in your past that you haven't gotten over. And so it's moving through all that stuff with the idea that one of the little songs the guides always give me is that song, "Every Little Thing's Gonna Be All Right." And it's sort of like, that's just not for this lifetime. That's like for all our lifetimes. Like we just flow through it.
I have a question about the multiple lifetime thought. To me, it makes sense. If I were God, I would say, I don't want to make people that just come and go. I want to make people that grow and learn. And so I've often thought, okay, I don't know if the Bible teaches it or if it goes against what religious teaching we have, but maybe it's just part that we misunderstand. So in other words, I believe it probably happens. But when it happens, I often think everything I've learned in this time, I'm hoping that some of it comes over to the next time so that I don't make the same stupid mistakes. And I'm not talking about, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about language, because we have to learn a language. We have to learn how to read and math and all that stuff. But I'm talking about, just times when maybe I wasn't so nice to people, or times when I was lazy and things like that I wish I could take back. And I hope the next life I'm smarter than that.
Yeah. Well, the book talks a little bit about this idea of karma. And karma isn't like this curse or destiny you can't change. The guides talk about karma is soul lessons learned over time. And time isn't just this lifetime. It's like we have all the time we need to work through these various soul lessons of maybe being nice to people or not making dumb mistakes or whatever it's going to be. But we're continually evolving towards a higher state of ourselves. So we do improve every lifetime just a little bit more. We get a little bit closer to being that ultimate being that we want to be.
Oh, wow. That's absolutely good to know. The other question I have is about communicating with people. If I am trying to communicate with, let's say, Abraham Lincoln, let's just use somebody who's been gone a long time, how is that possible when he may not even be in the spirit realm anymore? He might be back as a reincarnated human.
Yeah, and think of his beard, like what's going on with that?
Yeah, so, he might be a lady by now. Who knows?
Yeah. No, a lot of people think, or what I believe is that, your soul is infinite and it can be in a lot of different places at once. So Abraham Lincoln might be departed, or he might also be reincarnated, or he might also be in some kind of parallel lifetime. I mean, this idea that it's linear isn't really how it works. It's more like it's everything all the time, and the soul essence remains constant, so we can always connect to that piece.
This has to be kind of exhausting for you, though, because you have to make sure that you're always on top of your game when you're helping others.
Well, I don't consider it coming from me. I consider myself, sometimes I talk about like I'm a tube or I'm a conduit. I just open up to the guides and let that come through. Like this book actually was literally written in meditative state with my eyes closed during at 4 a.m. in the morning. So it's not coming from me as a personality, it's coming through me. And that takes a lot of the pressure off the personality, that's for sure.
You just described exactly how I do the news. It's 4 o'clock. I'm typing with my eyes closed. You said something I wanted to comment on. You said things are not linear, and I have had this thought forever that the Earth is round, and we shouldn't have been surprised because all the planets are also round. Well, maybe everything made by a human is a straight line. Like you see buildings and tables, and almost everything is straight lines, right? And there's nothing that's a straight line in nature. Nothing.
Yeah.
So right. I don't know why we think that life is a straight line when nothing in life is a straight line.
Yeah, and nothing in life is, even that idea of time being linear. We just accept it, but if you go out, say, into nature, is that even how it feels? Not really. It doesn't really feel like the big straight line of time.
No, it doesn't. I went back in time this past weekend. in my mind.
You have your book divided up in different parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got 66 lessons, and then it's got a little exercise, so you can use this book. Somebody said it's a workbook. I'm like, oh yeah, it kind of is. 66 lessons, a little exercise for each, and then a couple of stories from my own life here in the Oregon woods to kind of just tie it all together. Because I have a lot of experiences living out here in nature that I think a lot of people don't get to live in nature so much anymore, and it does give a different flavor to another way of looking at things.
And you talk about music too. It's very important, I feel.
Yeah, music is one of these beautiful soul languages that helps us feel our emotions and helps us process our stuff. Even though, we just think, I'm just listening to a song I like, but a whole lot of other stuff is happening on an emotional and spiritual level when you're listening to music.
So how do you let's see, how do you listen to the messages? But is there a time when listening to the messages is easier, like when you're driving a car, for example, or maybe that's enough of a question. I don't know how to even ask it. So
I teach a method where we go into this very, very gentle, easy, relaxed state, no big deal, and then you kind of just start to either look for visions or you look for messages in I call it your mind's ear. And you're right, that gentle state of relaxation, it could be driving, could be in the shower. For me, I kind of like to have a laptop ready and just kind of sit quietly at my desk or on a sofa. It's just that going into that relaxed state and then kind of paying attention to what's starting to come through. And it's a little weird at first, and the minute you do it a couple times, it's like you go, I know how to get there, that kind of psychic sweet spot of accessing information.
The messages in the book, the messages from the divine, wisdom for the seeker's soul. Have you had feedback from your readers yet?
It just, today is the first day it's out. So people are getting their books in hand as we speak this morning. Yay!
Oh, okay. So I'm looking at. I have a copy of the book. If I have a listener who would like the one that was sent to me, this is an advanced reader's edition. I call it a collector's copy. So call me if you would like the copy that Sara sent to us. I had your face on the podcast. Now I have the book cover on the podcast. I found the book on Amazon, and I wanted to know if you had any websites you wanted to recommend. Look at this. It's right now. It's number 50 in the spiritual healing category. That's
pretty amazing.
That's amazing.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Well, I'm offering a free online course study guide for the book. If people go to my website, sarawiseman.com, we've got 1,400 people signed up already, and we're going to start Thursday. So if people want to go to sarawiseman.com, they can get into that free online course. That's a study guide for the book.
Oh, excellent.
That's really amazing, because I think if nothing else, people will be able to look at themselves inwardly and see some of the not so nice things or habits that they have and change their own lives around.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes looking at something is the first key to just letting it shift or letting it change, just observing it.
I think the times in our lives that we go through that are the low spots, the hard parts. I think the good news is that there is an end to whatever it is. So maybe that's the optimist in me. I don't know. Sara, thank you for being on the air with us. I just loved this conversation. I can't even begin to pretend that I understand what it is we're talking about, but I do believe it exists. I do believe there is this other spiritual place where we can tap into. Thank you. Thank you, Sara.
Oh, Larry and Robin, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
You are welcome. We'll be right back.
Friends, countrymen, tourists, and Ocalans, lend me your ears. Hey, speaking of ears, there is an opportunity for you to help feed and provide good maintenance, housing, and medical care for Marion County's rescued big cats, bears, monkeys, and other disabled or unreleasable wild and exotic animals. Take a tour on Wednesdays or Saturdays of the Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary. Adults $20, children 12 and under just $12. Call 352-266-2859 for any questions.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. Primary day in 4 states.
Competitive primaries for governor taking place both in Idaho and Oregon. In Nebraska, a key Senate primary to determine which Democrat will face vulnerable Republican Senator Deb Fischer. But it's Pennsylvania where stakes are the highest for Democrats after the state Supreme Court ruled Republican-designed districts are a violation of the state's constitution.
Fox's Sean Langell. The city of Seattle is going to charge big businesses like Amazon and Starbucks and Boeing per worker to raise money for affordable housing and homeless services.
The city council okayed a tax on businesses that make at least $20 million in revenue. It's being called the head tax and comes out to about $275 per full-time worker employed by those businesses. It would raise about $48 million.